After being crucified, Jesus Christ lies inside a claustrophobic stone tomb resting on a white shroud. At the top of the frame, the inscription reads, "Jesus of Nazareth, King of the Jews." The painting you're looking at was created by Hans Holbein in 1521, and I can already tell you, it will be the most striking depiction of Jesus Christ you have ever seen. When the Russian novelist Fyodor Dostoevsky saw the painting in 1867, he was so fascinated and disturbed by it that his wife had to drag him away, fearing he was about to suffer an epileptic seizure. He later incorporated the painting into his novel The Idiot, where one of the characters, Prince Mishkin, remarks that some people might lose their faith upon seeing that image. Shown from a side view, Hans Holbein's painting has a graphic intensity that, at least at first glance, erases any trace of divinity from Christ's lifeless body. Apart from the visible wounds of his execution, the marks on his hands and feet, and the deep lance wound in his side, there is nothing else that speaks of Christ's suffering. We see no cross, no mourners, no typical emotional outpouring that usually accompanies this subject in art, nor any hint of what is to come. The story of the crucifixion is reduced here to its bare essence, flesh and bones beginning to cool and decay, a gaunt body with hardened, dried wounds, and a bruised face with half-open eyes, yet utterly lifeless. It is an image that challenges the viewer, and perhaps that is why it has captivated so many admirers over the centuries. The creator of this image was Hans Holbein the Younger, a highly talented German-Swiss painter who traveled extensively across Europe and earned the favor of Henry VIII's English court. Today, he is considered one of the finest portrait artists of the 16th century. To get a sense of his style during that time, and of the works that launched his career, we can look at this portrait he painted in 1523 of the famous Dutch humanist Erasmus. Holbein often leaned toward a materialistic approach in his art. He was deeply interested in portraying people's personal belongings, books, letters, clothing, jewelry, musical instruments, as a way to reveal their character and personality. It's also worth remembering that he was the artist behind this other portrait we analyzed on the channel just a few days ago. Holbein's painting of Christ, however, is different. As an early work, Holbein was about 25 years old when he painted it. It's clear he was more focused on experimenting with form and emotional effect. The lighting, for example, is harsh, brutally illuminating the corpse, while the deep shadows intensify the claustrophobic feeling of the narrow tomb. He doesn't seem to have aimed to please the viewer. In fact, no patron is known to have commissioned this piece. Rather, it seems Holbein wanted to confront the viewer directly and raise difficult questions. A major influence for this painting was Grunewald's altarpiece, which Holbein likely saw as a boy when his father took him to Isenheim. In that work, the crucifixion is portrayed in a visceral, graphic way, with Christ's body shown in an advanced state of decay. This macabre representation left a deep impression on Holbein. It would not be far-fetched to think that Holbein's depiction of Christ lying dead in the tomb was conceived as a kind of response to Grunewald's work, perhaps imagining what happened after the crucifixion. And although it shares that same intense physicality, Holbein's version is strikingly unique in the history of art. Rarely do we see Christ lying lifeless inside his tomb, presented as if the stone slab had been cut away to offer the viewer a direct eye-level view. The inevitable question is, what drove Holbein to create such a haunting image? Although I hadn't mentioned it before, the painting measures 2 meters wide but only 30 centimeters high. Christ's body is depicted at life size, and the composition is confined to these narrow dimensions. The elongated, compressed shape of the tomb creates a suffocating feeling, as if the edges of the canvas and frame are pressing against the figure with a claustrophobic intensity. Holbein uses this oppressive atmosphere to draw the viewer into the drama of the corpse. Notice, for example, how Christ's hair, wet and tangled, spills out onto the cold stone slab as if trying to break through the boundary of the painting and reach into the real world. Something similar happens with the right hand. It hangs over the edge of the shroud, giving the impression that the viewer could almost touch it. If you look closely, the middle finger is extended and seems to press into the white cloth, slightly wrinkling it. Is this a subtle sign of life returning, or simply a result of rigor mortis? These stark, tangible details confront us with a difficult question. How could a body so devastated and lifeless ever be resurrected? In 1867, the writer Fyodor Dostoevsky saw this painting for the first time in Basel and was deeply struck by it. He had heard about the work and, during a trip to Geneva with his wife, made a special stop to see it. Anna, his wife, later recalled how Dostoevsky stood motionless in front of the painting, his face reflecting a mixture of awe and terror so intense that she feared he might suffer an epileptic seizure. At that time, Dostoevsky was working on The Idiot, a novel where the impact of this image is clearly felt. In it, the character Hippolyte wonders how Christ's disciples could still believe in his resurrection after seeing him in such a state. Holbein's painting, rather than glorifying Christ's divinity, confronts the viewer with the brutal reality of his death. It reflects the spirit of the Reformation, a desire to approach the figure of Christ directly, without idealization. Holbein offers no comfort, but instead presents a stark vision of human fragility, forcing us to face suffering, sacrifice, and the harsh question of whether faith can endure in the face of such a vision. I'd love for you to share your thoughts about this painting in the comments and let me know if you had seen it before. I'd also like to remind you that if you'd like to have this painting in your collection, it's now available on our website. I invite you to check out the link in the description where you'll find a catalogue of over 500 selected artworks for you to start collecting your favorites. You can also choose to get your favorite piece as a phone case so you'll not only protect your device, but also carry a work of art with you wherever you go. Thanks to everyone who supports the store. You make it possible for me to keep creating videos like this every week. Thank you so much for your support, and I'll see you in the next video.